Hey everybody, it's Bust with Battles with Bust number 261, and today we're doing battle in the Timewinder Gauntlet. And so, if you're looking to get your last little marks, your last set of buys into the Last Chance Gauntlet, hopefully we can help you out a little bit over the course of the next few videos. We're going to be playing 2 or 3 of these Timewinders, and so for this one, I wanted to just kind of start to get a feel for the format. I only played Expedition back during these wonderful times, and so I'm not super current on the state of the format. But I do have a feeling that it's going to be heavily tied to Leona, given that we saw in the Foundations only gauntlet, Jinx really kind of ran rampant. She was updated well after Foundations Constructed was a thing. In the previous format with the Rising Tides, we saw that Swain was running rampant as he was also buffed after the release of the Rising Tides. And now that we run into this format, I have a feeling that we're going to see a lot out of Leona. Leona is one of those cards that's, kind of fringe strong right now. She hasn't landed into a good format right now since Ezreal Seraphine is just so good at crushing decks that don't interact or win fast enough. And so she's not that great, but she has been a best of 3 consideration and a, kind of like tier 2 ladder deck over the past few months. And so I suspect that she's going to be at the kind of the forefront of the format. Now, the thing I do want to say before we dive in is if you've just been pushing the set buttons within the collection, if you're just out here and going to cards, hitting up the filters, and then selecting Foundations, Rising Tides, Call of the Mountain, you're going to miss out on some cards. You need to click this Events button down here as well. That's going to open you up to things like Aphelios and things like Stress Testing, cards that you may miss out on if you're just clicking the little set buttons. So kind of keep that in mind as you're out there brewing and doing your own deck building. And so, in terms of the decks that we're going to be playing today, with that Leona thing in mind, the first one we want to bring is Twisted Fate Fizz. And this was a deck that was, it's arguably one of the most hated decks of all time in terms of Runeterra. It ranks right up there, with the kind of prime time tokens deck with Azir Irelia. And if you're not familiar with the deck, we didn't play through that constructed format. Again, we were only playing Expedition, but this is a very spells heavy deck focused on winning the game with these elusives. The kind of premier course of action with this deck is you get to play Wiggly Burblefish for free. You've played all of those spells, so the Burblefish now costs 0. You're going to copy it with Iterative Improvement, and then you get to replay it again for free. And so we have a bunch of cycle in our deck to help us move through faster, play a bunch of spells, help us activate the things with the Wiggly Burblefish, and then we're going to do that big attack in the late game with the Zaps, the Burblefish, and the Fizz to hopefully be unblocked by our opponent. We have a bit of ways to kind of chunk in the extra damage. Playing a suit up on an elusive is a fantastic way to get in a very relevant and big unit early. And then, of course, we have a small burn package with the likes of Mystic Shot and Get Excited to help close out the game. Very non-interactive, but that's the kind of thing Leona doesn't want to see. She wants to see you try to throw a bunch of units on the board so her big collection of stats can outman, if you will, your smaller piratey style stats or whatever you're bringing to the table there. Deck number 2, if you don't want to go around them, you just go over top of them. We're looking to play Aurelian Soul Ramp here. And this is a deck I, of course, love. We've played this quite a bit. We played it in a Seasonals. The thing that, really makes me salty with Riot is they said the card Targon's Peak was too much RNG, so they made it go from 5 to 6, and then they just immediately released Seraphine and Fan Club President and the back alley bar. And so, I take it how you want. I guess reducing the cost of cards in your hand, RNG, unacceptable. Generating card RNG, acceptable. Kind of is what it is, but this is something to where, the Leona decks don't really come online until turn 5 and turn 6 when they have Leona and Ravoon going on board. We're ideally going to be able to, play a ramp card and drop the peak, and then we can start dropping our bigger spells, hopefully before they're able to get their bigger collection of units. And so we do have the biggest of spells. We have the She Who Wanders and the Feel the Rush. Feel the Rush, another card you need to click that Events tab to go and find, and we're looking to just drop the big spells off of the ramp. Thing to note in here, If That Stairs, also an events-only card. and so you need to go a bit out of your way to come in and find it. The big downside to playing the cards like the ramp deck now are Blighted Ravine does not appear until the Empires of the Ascended set. And so our early game is very vulnerable. We're going to have to kind of watch ourselves in the pick and ban so that we don't get stuck trying to run this up against pirates. But I think we should be able to find a lot of very favorable kind of mid-rangey matchups that we can look to pick on by going over top of them. Last but not least, we have Katarina, Leona. There we go. I got all those names out eventually. Jeez. But this is the Leona deck. We have almost all of the Daybreak cards in here. The only Daybreak card we're missing is Zenith Blade, which we'll circle back to, and 2 copies of Eclipse Dragon. Out of that, it's just a matter of not dying. So we have the Guiding Touches and the Sunbursts to hopefully help us get a little bit into the later game. And then as the non-Daybreak units, House Spider and Mountain Goat are here to give us some early game interactivity. And so this is the deck to where as the game drags on, as the game grinds on, your opponent shouldn't be able to stop you. You just have so much value between the Sun Guardians, the Ravoon, and the Eclipse Dragon generating units. You have the likes of Sun Guardian growing and growing and growing. You just have a pretty strong mid-game to late-game style of plan. The downside, of course, to this deck is it doesn't interact well. It's just a big collection of stats. And the thing that we always say with these style of decks is you have to either be able to overwhelm, rally, or have elusives. So if your opponent just has a bunch of hapless aristocrats on the board, you're still able to deal damage. And so in the days of old, you would have looked towards the card Zenith Blade. That one's been nerfed. It no longer gives permanent overwhelm. And so we are looking to cycle back into having Katarina. Katarina giving us the big collection of rallies. Our units are more than strong enough to survive. They just need to be able to attack a bunch of times. And so Katarina should be the one that lets us close out the games. She's that great answer to that question. What do I do if I need to elusive, rally, or overwhelm? And so those are the decks. That's what we're bringing today. You know what we have to do before the battles begin, though. We have to go and pay the pay-to-win price. And I was kind of surprised by this one. If I was looking at Twisted Fate Fizz, we haven't leveled up the suit up yet. And that's what we're going to give the old premium treatment today. Maybe we'll get some turn 2 4/4 elusives on the board. Make sure our opponent is having a good time. So those are the decks. They're loaded up into the gauntlet thing. I did that ahead of time to make sure that we could actually actually play our decks as legal, and we are ready for battle. All right, off we go. Exciting stuff. These have been fun. I'm in kind of like a crossroads as to where I need to do some like serious grinding to get more familiar with the current constructed format. All right, you can see that Last Chance Gauntlet's coming up in a little over 2 weeks, and between the holiday season and not playing a lot then, and then the various Timewinders distracting me from Standard, I'm gonna have to put in some overtime to get more familiar with those formats. But swinging back here, this is a fairly mid-rangey style of lineup. You can look at Deep and Leona as being the exact same deck, so I definitely want to leave the Deep deck up. I'm not amped about swaying Twisted Fate in terms of both our Aurelian Soul and our Fizz deck. It should have the tools to be good against both of those, but I think the Anivia deck is the one to actually ban here. I think that's the one that has the potential to bring us the most problems. And so, again, I don't want to run up against swaying Twisted Fate with our Twisted Fate Fizz deck. There's just too much AoE. There's too much interactivity. With all of our 1 health units against Twisted Fates and Make It Rains and the like, and so we'll come out with the Leona. And cool. Reasonable enough start. We got a Sun Guardian here. I'm not certain if we should hang on to this Ravoon or not. He is quite good, but we're not going to get to play him for quite a few turns. Let's go ahead and get rid of him and see if we can't find something a little cheaper. All right, the goat's turned up. Don't have a turn 2 Daybreak, so we aren't immediately leveling up the Leona, but it's right on track otherwise. Interesting block. You lost 1 Vile Feast off of the toss. I guess you can't get a second one in here. Deep doesn't usually play things like Go Hard. I feel like that would be the kind of next addition if you're looking to deal 1 damage pings, but Maybe he's just taking that strategy of preventing every point of damage that he can. But we're bringing everybody. If he wants to take the value block onto the Solari Soldier, kind of goes against his previous block, but he does get to remove the unit from the board. Otherwise, I wouldn't be surprised to see him block one of our... it's not that bad to say block a Mountain Goat and then try and play something like Withering Whale. So I could definitely see that in the opponent's near future as a means to try and take some of our units off the board. Maokai. Interesting. So, I mean, we should be pretty safe to just get our Katarina going. I like being able to Katarina and then hit the Thorny Toad with the Blade and then have a really strong open attack next turn. Don't need to just slam down Leona. She's not quite strong enough to take down the Maokai, and I worry a little bit if we don't open. So let's just go ahead and get rid of the Dum Dum. Alright, so what I'm going to look to do, I'm going to go ahead and just drop a gem onto the Mountain Goat. That's going to give us a pretty good open. I don't want to be playing Pale Cascade, but we have that option if it turns up. Ideally, we'll probably just go for a rally here. It's just the downside to him having Maokai's on the board is going to be when he plays a unit, he's going to get that free unit on the back end. That's expensive. You gotta do what you gotta do, I guess. Alright, so we're short on the Daybreaks. Nothing we can do about that, but we have a pretty powerful board now. I don't quite think Maokai's worth a Sunburst. I think we want to just get the Leona on board. But we're running into that problem I talked about as to why we very much want to have those Katarinas for the rallies. As opponent just floods the board with these shitty units, we can't actually deal any damage. And so we need a little bit of something. I was hoping that we were at this space to where we were going to have Leona on board on this next turn, and then we could just Sunburst to Maokai. Right? It leaves us in a bind if we let him add a unit. Right? If we play a unit, and then he adds a unit, he's going to have 2 units on the turn. And so I think we need to just go ahead and come in with the Sunburst. It's getting real close to deep. He did lose an Atrocity in that. I haven't been paying super close attention to what he's played through. I guess you can look at the deck tracker, but looks like he's out of Vengeances and he's lost 1 Atrocity. Alright, might be good enough. There's the hapless aristocrat nobody wants to see. And so let's see. I'm still just going to go ahead and boost our little spider. I want all of our units to be able to win the combat against this Dead Bloom Wanderer without us having to play a Pale Cascade. He's going to get some good blocks here. He has the aristocrat onto the spiderling. Like, these are all fine. It's just the Wanderer is the problematic bro here. Look at that, only netting 1 point of damage. Feels horrible. Hey Bust, why you make such a big deal about playing the rallies? This. Are we seeing this? has this game unfolded before your eyes? Alright, Solari Priestess, interesting addition though. We might be able to pick up a big Celestial to help us win. The awkward thing with the Priestess in this space is we need to be able to deal with this Nautilus, but the Obliterate spell costs 6. So We may not be able to punch in enough damage here. So here's the Fallen Comet. It costs 6. We can still add the Warrior this turn if we want, which is probably where we need to be. Our units in hand aren't that spectacular. But I guess there's not a real difference between having the Warrior and having the Sunforger on board. So we got to get in a block. Can't be just dying to Atrocity next turn. Thankfully, it seems like he doesn't have any more sea monsters. He doesn't have any cheap bros to drop with the Nautilus on board. So we got to win with this open attack now. So the first thing is I don't want to lose a unit to Withering Whale. We'll give the boost to the Mountain Goat. Up next, we can boost the House Spider. Then we can boost the Solari Priestess. Drop out a little to big attack. See where it gets us. Really wish we just had like one more point of damage. I'd feel so much better if the Spiderling was presenting lethal. Did we play a second gem on this Mountain Goat? Maybe we should have gotten him up to 3. Because now it's like if he has a removal spell for 1 unit, then we're not going to have lethal, and then the game's probably just over at that point. 2 removals is a different story, though. Did have the Withering Whale. Okay. Well, I'm glad we picked up the Obliterate. That was going to be a real painful one if this Nautilus got to hang around. Hopefully he just doesn't have any more sea monsters, right? Shipwreck Hoarder is okay. He's very blockable. The Nautilus is the problem. But we do need to find some more width here. Ravoon and Sun Guardian are kind of light in the sense of getting a victory. Okay. Abyssal Eye. All right, let's see what turns up. Daybreak. It's always day. That's right. So what do we got here? We can go for big value if we want, but I think the Written in the Stars is the way to go. If we pick up a Katarina, that's a pretty quick route to victory, and then Leona's not horrible. Leona it is. We can't play her this turn. We'll have to. Oh, we can play her this turn. But she'll have. Give me barrier. Okay. So we can add her this turn and then just open next turn with Ravoon. Maybe these stuns will be enough to pull it off. Hi, Fam Jam. Let's see if we can do it. Ooh, that was a perfect draw. Assuming he can't interact with our Leona, which should be tough for him to do, right? He's out all 3 of his Vengeances. We should be able to get the triple Daybreak this turn, stunning 3 units. That was big, picking up a unit that we can get going. All right, game. Let's see if we can do it. Uh-oh. Takes down our Ravoon. Can't stop that. Boo. I didn't think he was gonna have a way. So can we still get to lethal at this point? We can add, like, say we attack with Leona, we'll hook the Abyssal Eye. He's got 2 blockers at that point. We're not going to be able to add enough units to the board. He's got 5 cards left. It's like I have to stop and think. It's like, do we ever do we ever just kill him? Do we ever get him with with the decking? I think that's probably a little bit too aggressive. But we can look to take down this Abyssal Eye. Not sure what happens if you play a second Nautilus, right? Your tossed allies go back in. Ew, picked up a Kill Breaker. That's pretty good. Alright, well, if he wants to Kill Breaker, it will get rid of everything except the Devourer of the Depths, which I think is okay. Looks like he's going to be trying to play another Nautilus now. Interesting. Because we still get to use the Leona stun abilities on the upcoming turns, and so we can give her barrier, stun the big unit again. And this seems like a positive round. Losing that Ravune was a bit of a problem. We're making it, I think. we're cruising right along. Got 2 cards left. Maybe he'll play another salvage. Oh boy. Can't wait to see what comes out of this. What you got for us, Treasure Trove? You ever play that Treasure Trove adventure in Path of Champions? It's a real, it's a real delight. Everybody shuffles a Treasure Trove into their deck every turn, and then you toss. All right, can't block is kind of scary. What else you got for us? Something awesome, I'm sure.
Daylight is unrelenting, but not eternal.
Boom ship and a single combat. Well, we can't do anything about the single combat, but we can protect our Sunforger here if we want. Let's make sure we're just not going to get lethaled real quick. He's only going to have 2 units, then we can block both of them. So let's go with the Guiding Touch. Save the Pale Cascade in case we need to try and punch in a point of damage somewhere. But I guess at the end of the day, if that's the best that he's doing off of his boom ship, then we're not in the worst spot. Block the 2 bigs.
The enemies of day will fall.
All right. The Savage Reckoner. Okay. Could have been worse. We can still take down the Reckoner with a Pale Cascade. His attack doesn't seem spectacular. He does get to pull like the 5 attack unit out of combat if he wants. Oh, he goes small. Interesting. I figured he would not be happy about us just killing off all of his sea monsters. I was expecting this one. Oh, we can't block with our good units. That's kind of a problem. Okay. Yeah, probably dead at this point. Alright, deck, give us a good one. Katarina. Just like a day late and $1 short. Let's see what we can do, though.
Let the bloodshed begin.
She's got... Oh, she's just going to get killed by the Keelbreaker, isn't she? He's probably just got to go for it. But, I mean, that may leave him in a spot to where he doesn't have any units for next turn. Like, if he Keel breaks and Nautilus is his only unit, we can still block Nautilus with the Shield Breaker. I mean, it might be enough if he decides that he has to take Katarina down. Sure. Well, he's probably going to be able at this point to just cycle through his champions. If you're not familiar with what you're able to do here, you can just play your copy of Maokai, then you have another copy in your deck, and you just keep redrawing that same copy that you shuffle in. So we're probably screwed in that sense. All right, let's just call it a day on this one. Brutal. But you can see 100% exactly why Katarina was included in this deck. It's just a real problem in the sense that, you know, we had a pretty decent board. He did get deep a little bit faster than was nice for us, but when you have that board just of gigantic units, and he's like, oh, here's a Spiderling, and here's a just a little 1/1. I'm gonna block your Ravoon and block your Leona and just take 2. It's just so brutal. You have to have the rallies to punch through that. But here I'm fine to battle against Leona, and I'm not worried about Sejuani Fizz. Looks like that's who he's bringing to the party here. But I wanted to take an opportunity to get our Fizz Twisted Fate deck in, see if we couldn't play a game with it. I think the Leona deck's probably not too happy to play against Fizz Twisted Fate, so it's probably decent to have it go. All right, let's get rid of all of that. We're looking for some of our cheaper plays, our Poro Cannons, our Zaunite Urchins, our Ballistic Bots, our Fizz even, just something that we can throw on the board early. Did not hit. Starlight Seer's not scary, though. Just doesn't attack. Interesting. Maybe a little bit of a whoopsies there. Do we ever want to discard Twisted Fate? Like, I feel like we need to rummage. We're not going to get one of these Twisted Fates leveled up anytime soon. Maybe we just discard a suit up because it's expensive. It's like I can just definitely envision us being in a spot to where we like just block with Twisted Fate and play a second one. All right, though. We'll have some more fresh discard stuff coming in the next turn now that we have this Ballistic Bot on the board, but we're starting to get things rolling. And I'm not sure how much I even care about this Puffcat Peddler. So we can drop Fizz. It's probably safe enough. If we're just going to come in and ignore the opposing units, then Fizz is okay. Then we'll have Mystic Shot protection with our Mystic Shot. All right, bro, we're just going to bring the elusives. Let's be real. That's what's about to happen with this one. Zap. I think Zap is probably too slow for this turn. Like, let's see. If we play the Ignition, that's going to make Burblefish cost 2. Oh. All right, we'll give it a turn. You're supposed to cast your burn spells onto our Fizz, dude. That would be much kinder of you if you were dropping your burn onto Fizz. We'll probably need a... Hopefully we don't need 2 more attack tokens to try and get through this. We might need 2 more, but hopefully that's not where we're at. Pretty good damage prevent with the gold card, though. Like, his ground-based attackers aren't doing anything now. And so Let's see. Discard the stress testing, take one Dum Dum down. Don't need Twisted Fate anymore. And then this should be a safe block with the Ballistic Bot. I'm not entirely certain what kind of removal suite this guy's going to be rolling through with, but I think it's okay. Sure. As long as the bot doesn't die, it's not a big deal. Here you go, Fizz. It took me a minute to pick up on that he was fleeting. I was hoping that we were going to be able to just get a rally. But not quite the case. Shakedown is not the card we were looking for. Mind Meld, though. How do we feel about the Mind Meld? It's close. Like, as it stands, assuming we play Ignition, that'll take opponent to 12. Then we're going to punch in for 6 Elusive, take him to 6. Then we would need to get the kill with the Get Excited Mystic Shot to where we're 1 point short, but the Ballistic Bot would generate something next turn if we manage to survive. I think I'm okay to just go with the Mind Meld. It's like, if we do get to hit with 2 units, then we should be okay. Like, I don't care if we lose out on Fizz here. It does give him the opportunity to, maybe play a Harsh Winds, but I think it's probably just too good at this point. Why was this Teemo a 5/5? Why are you so big? The Starlit Seer. Wow. That's interesting. Well, that feels pretty decent. I'm not going to complain about getting him to 1. Alright, everybody, you know what it's time for. You gotta squeeze them cheeks. Squeeze them butt cheeks real good. See if we can survive the flurry of puff caps. 2, okay. We survived that. Another draw. 1. Alright, we should be safe. We should be safe. Should be. Let's give that a shot. GG. Oof. Nice recovery, Twisted Fate Fizz. Nice recovery. All right. Next battle. So what do we got here? An opposing Twisted Fate Fizz. I think that's the one that will probably ban out. I'm not certain what this Zoe deck's supposed to be. It's probably just elusives. If he's not playing a Felios, I would think that he's probably just playing like an iterative improvement elusives based deck. And then I don't think we ever care. I can't remember the last time we've cared about Braum. So we'll let him stay up. We'll see if we can't bring in the Aurelian Soul deck here. It's one of those things to where it has to just be good against Braum, but if he's playing elusives with Zoe, that's probably a bit of a nightmare. And so we'll just kind of coin flip and see what he brings. It could be one of those worlds as to where everybody's just kind of afraid of Twisted Fate Fizz, and they assume that that's going to be the deck to turn up. But I'm surprised he wouldn't just ban it at that point if that's how he's kind of feeling about it. All right, but we got a ramp card. And we got an Avalanche. Again, I think, I don't know what this is going to be, but this really strikes me as having, like, Zoes and Poro Cannons and the Nightfall elusive guy. Kind of like the Zoe Teemo elusive decks that we see in the modern times. All right, Zoe's in. I got Zoe in my deck too, bro. She's gonna be 10-10 though. Whoa. Little Celestials. Had to stop and make sure he was just like physically playing that card. Let's just go ahead and take our ramp. Like, passing doesn't feel good. Dropping an avalanche just on Zoe doesn't feel good. And if he open attacks on us next turn, I don't think that's a big deal. So we'll try and set up a good avalanche. And we are primed and ready for this Targon's Peak. It would be pretty nice if we could drop the peak this turn. Not gonna lie, it does feel pretty good to get the to get it down on turn 4 and then start dropping Aurelian Souls on turn 5. Sad day for our deck, man. Okay, I feel pretty safe though. Yeah, just got a hand primed and ready for the Targon's Peak. I guess people could play Aftershock. Like Aftershock would be a bit of a disaster, but if the peak stands, then we should be in pretty good shape. This doesn't strike me as an Aftershock deck, but who knows? Laser Kitty. Drop the Laser Kitty in. That's the Aftershock protection you need right there. You shouldn't be able to Aftershock you if you're gonna drop the good emotes. Alright, Ballistic bot in. And the Charger. Looks like he's just gonna open attack on us. Okay. Wonder if he like star charts and goes to look for the 0 cost guy, just to get another dude on board. That's not 16 though. And then we hit the Feel the Rush. Is it gonna be 20? Oh man, what are we looking at here? 6, 10, 14 to this point? And the Aftershock. Well, the Aftershock coming in is okay. Our spell still costs 0 for the turn, so we're gonna get to Feel the Rush. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Alright, block. Do we get to just start saying stuff like that now? Alright. I mean, the Ballistic bot's a little scary. Not big scary, just a little scary.
Finding details is my duty.
Don't think we'll need the faces, but it's like if we get to keep the faces alive and then play Catalyst of the Aeons, we can start playing a big spell next turn. Holy shit, he just doesn't attack? That's just too good to pass up on. I would love to play a heal or a ramp card, but if he gets an itchy trigger finger here and starts to bring the units in, that is no good. To where us right now with double star shaping and a flipped Aurelian Soul are feeling quite strong. Oh my god, these are all doo-doo butter. You're not even bigger than an assembly bot, bro. I'm filled with disappointment. You're so much better than that, the Destroyer. Is that a flipped Zoe? Should we be frightened of that? I mean, you can probably give his whole team elusive spell shield, which would be, a problem. Let's be real, that would be a problem. So now the Supernova turns up one card too early. I guess you can't complain about adding in the Scourge. You can complain if you want. It's not really fair at this point. Can't. But what we should be able to do here, he's down to 3 mana. We have the Elusive and Zoe for 10. We can hit Zoe with our Scourge for... how much is this? Zoe can hit for 12, and then we can Overwhelm through his Zoe, and he won't have any more blockers for our Elusives. That's the way I'm kind of looking at this right now. Okay. Don't think we need to Crescent Strike. I would like to still have the mana next turn in case we need to feel the rush again. So, all right, he's got 1 mana. Again, it should be lethal with Zoe and the Scourge hitting for 21. And then if he wants to put a block in front of Aurelion Sol, we get more with the Destroyer. So, oof, good stuff. GG. Victory for Aurelion Sol. On to the next one. F and Aftershock, man. That was a card that it was unplayable. It used to cost 4 mana. Nobody played it, but now that it costs 3, the price is right. And that's, it's probably fair. It seems like a slow speed burn spell dealing 3 damage with upside is probably decent. And then I think that, like, with the release of the landmarks, it's the same person. Yeah, with the release of the landmarks, it was probably like safe to just not have landmark removal. That's kind of a bummer if you're playing the the landmarks deck and they just get completely shut out of the format. And so it's kind of saw the same things with the weapons in the current in the current constructed, as to where, like, some weapons and improvise came out, but the things like silence and suppress and heavy metal didn't come out until a set or two later. And so you got to kind of get the feel of non-removable weapons per se before before the removals came in. It's probably pretty safe to do that, in the sense that if the weapons are overpowered, it's just going to be for like 2 months. I think I'm okay with that that viewpoint of making the game. So here, we could have looked to have just, like, not played a unit on the first turn to bank up that 1 point so we could play Pale Cascade here, but, excuse me, I want to be able to play another Daybreak before Leona comes down, and just getting this trade on the small unit's not that big of a deal. And so it's like, if we roll into turn 4 and draw a 4-drop, I want to be able to drop it and get this Leona going, to where if we tool around with our mana too much, we're not going to be able to get any of those positive turns. Alright, not awesome, but not the end of the world. Just a little bit slower than I would like to be against this deck. That's going to happen as you pick up all these expensive bros, but you know what they say, man. It is what it is. Katarina. Always interesting. Always interesting. Like, I wonder, 0% chance it's ever successful, but it's like, I wonder if we can ever drop a Katarina Blade's Edge onto the assembly bot. Oh boy, if he's playing Zoe. Oh, she's gonna have the bonus. Got 2 bonuses. No, just 1. Okay. Perfect time for Leona, though. We get the stun onto Zoe. We can then look next turn to play Ravoon, get the Leona flip, and start going ham on this board. At this point, I'm curious to myself if I'm a little bit more worried about this assembly bot than I am the Zoe. I mean, probably not. It's just stats. We should be able to stun it over and over again. Probably need to look to just take the Zoe down in combat. Oh man, he boosted that thing fast. I was not aware of that line coming in. Protecting it from the stun. I like what you're about there, my dude. Ooh, sorry you missed the animation. I had to start sneezing. I'm not a master of pushing the mute button on this headset, and so I figured I'd save your ears and let you just miss the animation. I made it though. We're safe. Don't worry about me. We just lethal this turn with the morning light. Probably not now. I think we still want to drop it though. We gotta do something with this mana. Still get the stun onto his big unit, and we should be able to take Zoe down in combat. Punch in for a bunch.
Sunlight burns in our weapons.
Kind of lame, dude. Kind of lame. I thought we were all out here having fun and being cool. You gotta do stuff like that. Lame. Oh, this is bad. This is bad. You assume here that he's like never blocking with Zoe. We should really be dropping a gem onto something so that we could potentially get the kill next turn with Katarina. I don't like that we didn't gem. It was like I was just kind of autopiloting and thinking in my head. It's like, well, if he wants to block any of our units with Zoe, it's just going to die anyways. But having opponent at 1 is exceptionally important right here in the sense that we have Katarina for that point of damage.
Daylight is unrelenting, but not eternal.
How close is she to flipping? About halfway there. And we should probably be safe in that sense. It should be pretty tough for him to flip Zoe and play an elusive next turn, or play a relevant dude. They're all very expensive in that sense, and so I think we're okay there. Still thinking hard on that block. He brings it in. Okay. RIP Zoe. That just has to feel exceptionally good for us. He's lost that Zoe in his hand. So he only has access to 1 now. Well, there's another one in his deck, but he shouldn't be super likely to have any more Zoes in his hand. These dudes, like the Assembly Bot, are pretty irrelevant at this moment. Just the big shutdowns with Leona onto it. If he wants to attack with his non-overwhelmed dude, we'll just block it with the Solari Soldier. Not particularly scared about any of that. Sure. Do we even care about the stats from the Sun Guardian? I mean, probably not. Let's just drop a Solari Priestess. We can still follow up with Katarina after this, but this will give us a little bit of interactivity just in case things start to go really wrong. And I don't think they're going to go really wrong, but if he drops a Zoe and has some kind of weird collection of cards, I'd like to be able to kill her before she flips. Perfect. Looks good to me. So his turn's pretty much done. I assume that, he's not going to attack with an Assembly Bot into Leona. It's about to get stunned now anyways. We'll have a Katarina to kill off the Urchin. Then the open attack next turn should be enough to end it.
No going back.
All right. Here comes the squad. Ready for fun, ready for battle. All right, game says neg 15. I think I want to go ahead and play these gems. If he's got another star shaping, I would like to be lethal. So we'll give up on Leona, present 17, and then should be okay. I guess he could have like a mystic shot to kill Katarina, which would be annoying, but we haven't seen any burn spells outside of that one, whatever it was, Aftershock. So he does have the mystic shot, but he can't stop the lethal. All right, GG. You know what y'all need to do? You got to go mark that one a W for bust. GG. All right, next battle. So what do we got here? A bunch of decks that I would expect to see. It's Twisted Fate Swain, Trundlemere, probably Feel the Rush, and then Jinx Draven. This is probably a very standard kind of lineup to see out there. As far as these go, like I'm curious what his ban is, but I think our Aurelion Soul deck is okay to take up against both of his, or like both of his control-y style decks. So I'm just going to ban out Jinx Draven. And so now that his control numbers are what we have to look at, let's try this. You can't bring Fizz Twisted Fate against that. Let's be real. That's not a possibility. It's just so much AoE across both of the decks. All right, so hang on to the 2/2s. Look for some other cheap plays. We need to be the aggro in this one. Come in and slam in as much early damage as we can. So it's going to be tough to do. We're on the odd attacks. We've got all these random 2-drops in our hand. We're not going to be able to really start punching in early, but see what happens. Thinking real hard on that opener. This is a very important match. Don't let anyone tell you different. Some people would say it's life or death, you know? You never know what's going to happen at the end of the day. Did he disconnect? Did he drop his phone in the toilet? It's been known to happen, you know? You're at work, you say, boss, I need 15. Time to drop a 2-piece nugget in the old bathroom. Says, aye, bro, go for it. Then you're in there. See, oh shit, I'm queued up against old FTP bust. There's the potential that I could be on the internet tomorrow. You gotta watch out from there. Watching out from there. Alright, so this isn't super ideal. Again, why are we playing Katarina? This. Stuff like this is why we're playing Katarina. Otherwise, you just don't get to deal any damage whatsoever. And so it's going to take a bit of building up into. He does sit here with like the Ravenous Flock mana, and so I wouldn't be surprised to see him come in and bring a kill on our dude or something, but he hasn't done anything too scary up to this point. Just put shitty blockers on the board.
I'm always up for a round or two. Something for all.
All right, so who do we go for here? Like, I'm not really excited about the likes of Sun Guardians. It's just, you know, as we try and get invested into the Sun Guardian, opponents gonna just have like Ravenous Flock kind of answers for it, and I don't really want to deal with that. And so we'll just put down our single big unit here, and then show that we have 2 mana, right? 2 mana is that kind of interesting space to where you're playing Pale Cascades, or if you're playing Demacia cards, you're playing like Sharp Sights and the like. So we get a little bit more a little bit more threat when you have that 2 mana instead of just 1. Holy shit, she doesn't have barrier? God, this card's stupid. This card's stupid. You get your barrier. Daybreak, or when you activate another Daybreak. Stun the strongest enemy and give me barrier this round. Did that Daybreak not count? Oh, it was a front side Daybreak. She did her level up one. We needed one more stat to get that going.
Our sun will not set today.
Bask in the light's radiance.
All right. It's starting to look reasonable, though.
I've whipped up something special.
Interesting. All right, let's see if we can't get some of this magic going. I think we can just take the Traveler. We've got plenty of time here. We don't need Written in the Stars. We already have 2 Katarinas in hand. I mean, I guess I could see an argument that our Leona is probably not super safe, but she seems safe enough. Okay. We'll just go for a bit of a value play here. What you got? I am kind of interested in Crescent Strike, just a way to try and shut down a Swain, or the Leviathan, as it may be. I would have preferred to have found a big removal spell, but I think we want the interactivity here. We have enough stats. We have the ability to attack with our Katarinas. I just don't want. I just don't want to have to deal with like a big Swain hit that we aren't ready for. When did the Traveler become a 4/4? Who makes these updates, man? When has that ever been a thing? All right. And so the thing with this, like, there's an argument to not attack with Ravun. Like, he's one of our, kind of high-profile units here. But since we have another one in hand, I feel okay about this Ravenous Flock coming at him. It's not the end of the world scary, as Swain's going to be flipped anyways. Alright, so he did some stuff neat. The thing we're going to be looking towards now is having a Katarina come down. But it's like, as I look at this, like, I mean, we can just go ahead and stun the Leviathan, put a Katarina on board. Does this stun the strongest or the weakest? Where are you at? Stun the strongest back row enemy. So we shouldn't be stunning our Katarinas. Let's see if we can't save this Crescent Strike for a later turn.
The sun's splendor revealed.
That did not entirely go as anticipated. So we got to block this way now. Was that too greedy? We're going to lose out on our Leona.
A sacred guardian fueled by holy
Maybe that was too greedy.
bask in the light's radiance.
I don't know. He's just bringing stuns to our backline, though, right? He's going to stun Ravun Leona. But we still have, like, more stuns coming out of our turn.
Defend our sacred ways.
Interesting. So I guess it's got to come down to like how much stuff he can just get on the board this turn. Riptide Rex. Are we dead? No. Okay. I guess that's a worthwhile thing to investigate. Are we dead?
Raise your weapon, Sunwin.
Alright, well I guess our stun train is done. Was that an actual Swain? It was. Okay. Alright, so we've got him down to one card. Curious if he if we can get him to where he just like has to block this turn, or if we should just play a house spider. Like Mountain Goat's definitely coming in. This is what, 5, 8, 12, 13, 14, 15? Not quite enough.
No going back.
Let's just go ahead and get it ready. Like he's not gonna have the lethal between his Leviathan and friends.
Punish transgressions.
And then if he doesn't open attack on us next turn and we get to play a... okay, the last card was Swain's Ravenous Flock. So if he doesn't get to open attack on us next turn, we have the Crescent Strike, and that should... I mean, we've said this quite a bit now. it should be enough to end the game. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't.
Everything.
I guess the Swain does get the big AoE. Which is this 5, 9, 12. He should be one short in that sense. Okay. So we got this juicy block onto Riptide Rex. We were gonna get lethal. Oh man. Give me a taste of that heal. Alright, so can we get out of this? We got the Katarinas we gotta use to try and lethal with. Right, we have to get the Leviathan off the board or we'll just die as next turn starts.
Never play fair.
Oh boy, a second Leviathan. Okay, that one's probably on me. I feel like if we had more experience with playing with these Leonas, we probably would have been able to figure that out a little bit better. As we're sitting here kind of like, why don't I have Barrier? Or it probably could have figured out a way to get a better Daybreak run in there. Or what it probably came down to is that turn that we didn't Crescent Strike. I wasn't expecting him to be able to attack with both of his big units, and that started to be problematic. And so I think if we'd probably just either dropped the Crescent Strike there, or if we looked for a way to better get that Crescent Strike Katarina kill. But with all of our units being stunned, that was kind of tough to do. But at any rate, GG's. On to the next one. All right, next battle. Let's recover a little bit. Get ourselves a win, a victory. I believe in us. Just gotta get that Aurelian Soul out there, right? And reasonable collection of stuff to throw Aurelian Soul into. Soraka Tom Kench just seems like a nightmare for Aurelian Soul. The Anivia deck should be fine. The deck that strikes me as the most worrisome out of all of these is going to be the Twisted Fate, or the Gangplank Sejuani. And so even if he doesn't bring the ban onto our Aurelian Soul, which he does, I feel pretty decent about both of our decks into Soraka. Right, Soraka wants to be playing against like aggro deck like Pirates. It's a little bit more worrisome to run the Twisted Fate Fizz up against the Anivia, but I think I'm up for it. You know, let's see what he brings. Brings the Anivia. Okay. So what do we got? Those aren't the cheap plays we're looking for. Again, looking for some of those one drops. The Fizzes of the world, the Zonite Urchins, sure. Too bad the suit up turned up a little bit early. I would be stoked to turn to the Fizz with the suit up, but Not yet. Not yet. So I think like we're safe to drop in the Urchin and then just discard the suit up again. It's like it's so expensive at this point. I would prefer something just a little bit cheaper. And then there's no difference between the Urchin and the Fizz for this turn. This isn't a deck that typically plays 1-drops as he throws a 1-drop on us, but the Fizz would just be in the same place, and so reasonable enough. I don't want to drop the Fizz now, though. We can get kind of greedy with Fizz, given that we have 2 copies in hand, but I would kind of like to have access to that rally to potentially get a big 2 attack in with our elusives. And so we'll see if Fizz survives. I didn't want to play Fizz on the previous turn because he just dies to Vile Feast, but here he has the opportunities for success if we have that Mystic Shot to protect him a little bit. Alright, he's bringing damage at us and stuff. Everybody's just ignoring it. Let's see if we can't have a little bit more successful turn now. Just a little bit of a slow grind coming out of this game. So we're never discarding the Mind Meld. Let's get rid of the Get Excited. Stress testing, didn't really want that. You can take Fleeting from all the cards in our hand. But when you discard it, you do get a free card, so it's not completely irrelevant here. Catalyst of the Aeons. So I do want to spend some mana this turn. Let's just go ahead and drop Twisted Fate in. I think we want to go for a red card to get the point of damage and kill off the Spiderling. Maybe that's not that great. We'll just take blue card. There's a realistic chance Twisted Fate can threaten flipping in this match. I mean, I assume that opponent's probably just going to vengeance him before he gets up that high, but he's got a shot. And he does realistically help with these Playful Tricksters, so not completely useless. There's the suit up. I wonder, like, how bad is it if we just pass and he passes? I think it's acceptable. He's gone to attack with the Nivea. So we're looking at 8 coming at us. I think that's fine. I'm just looking at this next turn and wanting to, like, it's like, okay, we've got 2 Playful Tricksters. We got the Fizz that we're about to suit up. And like, we could attack with Twisted Fate and use him as our unit to pull back. And so I think this is all fine. That ability doesn't target, so we're going to suit up the Fizz, but it's not going to cancel the Glacial Storm. Okay.
A world in perfect stillness.
All right, so Ballistic Bot in. Still going to go ahead and drop in a Mystic Shot. I don't want to overbank the mana here too much. And then we'll see if we can't start up these shenanigans with our elusives. She got a Poro Cannon. Well, that's tempting. We have the 8 mana in total, so we should be able to drop the cannon, get both of the Poros on board, and then rally twice. That sounds good. Avalanche. A little less good. a little less good. We're not able to Mystic Shot out of these.
Wrapped in cold silence.
So do we still want to go for the Playful Tricksters? I mean, I think probably at least one. We have like a bit of time here, but not a ton of time.
I protect this place.
So Fizz will come in for 5. That's probably where we have to stop. I mean, I think a removal spell does counter this rally, so it's not guaranteed.
The chill
Yeah.
before the storm.
Nasty. I'm reaching to the upper right. I don't think we can win from this point, but we might as well see, I guess. Oh, that's nasty. All right, falling to 3. Guess we ought to just block the dude we can kill.
A world in perfect stillness.
We can see what happens. I mean, we got a mind meld, right? That should be all that one needs to achieve a lethal. Sure. You can technically just kill off this Anivia here to keep it from flipping back in, but I don't think it's going to be relevant enough. Right, we could have gold carded or red carded, killed off both. We could have mystic shot it to get that thing off the board. Just a lot of room for failure there. This round. Why does this have to say this round? This would be so nice if we could drop the mind meld off on this turn and not have to worry about it. So we just have to have stuff go right. We're not going to get in with our ground-based units, but we can go ahead and Mystic Shot to face and then try and Mind Meld. Again, I don't think this is going to be successful too frequently, but you can't just give up when you have the chance for lethal. So we'll give it a shot. We have that the 12 mana necessary. Now that is a fair question, and that would we want to iterative improvement the Burblefish as a means to not count on Playful Trickster, right? The Playful Trickster runs into problems like we had on that previous turn. I think that's okay. Let's see, oh boy, Jettison. Just what we needed. Still got that burst in case we got to protect Fizz or something, but not ultra confident about this turn. Look at all them 10-10s, though. That's what life should be about, am I right? That's what it should be about.
Let's talk about your tab.
Well, he's blocking and stuff. That doesn't make me feel very confident, but if we get in, like if he harsh wins, oh, the Anivia flips into harsh wins. I'm gonna say, but if he harsh wins and we get in for 10 damage, then we could still win with a Get Excited. All right, game. We got him to 3. F. All right. Well, that's going to do it. And so, all right. Not a bad set of games. A nice little intro to the format. Again, I didn't play during this era, so I'm not really certain on the decks to expect, whether or not it's going to be particularly aggressive or particularly mid-rangey or control-y. I think this was kind of odd to me because, like, again, like I didn't play in this time, but like the Anivia deck doesn't seem like it was ever as popular as we've seen it here across the past few formats. And I know Twisted Fate Swain is kind of a new addition to the world, given that Swain used to be garbage. But it was just much more slower, much more control-y than I was really expecting. And now, again, I don't know if that's just because we're on like day one of the new format and people are just kind of like carrying over the decks from the previous one. Because, I feel like most people that are like, oh boy, I want to play control decks are also like, oh boy, Invoke is a thing, and oh boy, Aphelios is a thing. And so I thought it was kind of odd that we didn't really run into those style of decks. But I think my initial takeaway from this is I think the same kind of thing applies as to where we're thinking about this Leona deck. I know we didn't run into Leona a ton, but that seems to be kind of the world we're in, as to where, like, I don't know at what point aggro decks just switch over to being good. Like we've had these like seasonals formats from like the past like 3 or 4 seasonals, however many we've been playing, as to where like pirates and scouts and decks of that nature are, you know, exceptionally strong, and especially in the best of three. But it's been like wild running through the gauntlets here and just not having the aggro decks here in mind, and not running into them as nearly as much frequency as we would typically see. And I don't know if that's just a function of what decks are actually good, or the people that actually feel like the want and desire to come in and play these best of three formats are more just in the competitive end of the spectrum, and those people tend to like more control decky style of things as opposed to not. Or if someone for Mastering in Runeterra just put out an article that says, you know, LOL, here's here's the best lineup in the format we've never played. It's three control decks. But again, like I think the probable like cornerstone of the format should be Leona, and I think that the lineups we should expect to see a lot of are kind of like that previous one, to where there's a Jinx Draven, an Anivia, and a Twisted Fate Swain. But I feel like those Twisted Fate Swain deck style of decks should just be getting kind of pushed out of the meta. I don't think that they really belong in the numbers we've been seeing. But in terms of the decks that we brought today, we can't talk about this for just a hot minute. Twisted Fate Fizz, I don't think this deck is probably worth bringing. Like the perk that this deck had going for it back in the day is you had Twisted Fate that flipped at 8, right? You need 9 card draws now instead of 8. And then Twisted Fate's flip card, pick a card, used to draw 3 instead of drawing 2. And so as you were kind of like running into these games, like that one, to where it's like we drew Twisted Fate and we're like, probably don't even really want to play it. And it's like as we run into, say, like the Sejuani Teemo game, where we're like, we have 2 Twisted Fates. Do we even really want to bother? I'm thinking about discarding one. That was the kind of space to where you're like, oh, cool, I drew a second Twisted Fate. Now I can draw 3. And that's going to be essentially half of my Twisted Fate level up as I draw my card naturally on the next turn. And then you could threaten the Twisted Fate flip. And if you discard a a ballistic bot missile, whatever those things are called, you would end up +1 card, right? As to where you spent your card, you discarded your card, that's 2, but you were drawing 3, so you ended up +1, and now you're just ending up with a cycle. And so I feel like that's where the deck is probably falling apart, is to where you used to have more of the alternate game plan, if you will, as to where game plan A is the elusive thing, and then game plan B is flipping Twisted Fate and getting value out of these discards, but that plan B doesn't really exist anymore. And so I don't think Twisted Fate Fizz is going to be a particularly strong deck in this meta. You might be able to look at it as we talk about these best of 3 play one game kind of formats as bringing 2 good decks that are just good against the field and then 1 really polarized deck. You might be able to design a lineup to where this looks to play against like the really polarized stuff. But I'm having a hard time envisioning where I even want that. Like it would be good in the sense of playing against a lot of Leona, but you don't want it against aggro. You don't want it against the AoE decks like the Anivia and the Twisted Fates, and it just seems like there's just not a really good market for Twisted Fate Fizz. And so Bust gives it a thumbs down. On to the next one. I was really happy with Zoe Aurelian Soul. You can see those matchups to where this should be extremely strong in that Swain Twisted Fate, and also against the Anivia decks that we saw a lot of here, but also carrying over its strength into the matchups like Leona. I think this this deck is kind of like the dark horse as being like one of the real strong decks of the meta. Because I don't think any of the decks sporting things like Aftershock are going to be particularly good. And then it still kind of feels like people are going to play like Jinx Draven, or people might bring like Pirates, but you aren't seeing it really in full force. You aren't seeing like those triple aggro lineups that should start making their way in. And so I think the Zoe Aurelian Soul deck does really fit that kind of theme as to where it can fit that polarized space. And I think a lot of our opponents were quite scared of this as well. Like this is getting to the point to where if you're playing like Anivias, that you have to worry about like, well, I'm going to fuck around and find out, and that fucking around and finding out has to do with Aurelian Souls hitting the board, and that doesn't feel nearly as good as to where in the past like the big fuck around and find out card was like Commander Ladros or like Nautilus, and who really gives a fuck about those? And so I think this one probably has a real place in the format. Last deck was our take on Leona. This one, I feel like it has some weight to it. It has some merit. I wasn't happy with the things in this list, like House Spider, just given that I was expecting the world to be much more aggressive, and I was apparently just quite wrong on that. And so the reason we're playing Katarinas are for the rallies. If you want to move over to Demacia, I mean that's probably the safer way to go. That lets you play. Things like Golden Aegis, Relentless Pursuit, Sharp Sight's in the format now, which is quite relevant for blocking the elusives. Also lets you play single combats. I don't know if Concerted Strike's in the format yet. I don't think Concerted Strike is around, but that was the typical reasoning for playing like Leona, Aurelion Sol. Excuse me, is that your champions are lined up in Targon. And then as you can see with the cards that we're sporting here, our real weakness is coming at these games and just not having any good spells to cast, right? Sunburst and Pale Cascade are basically the extent of the good Targon spells. And so switching into Demacia really helps with that. But if you're looking to play Aurelion Sol in a ramp deck, then you can't play Aurelion Sol in your Leona deck. And you have to kind of look elsewhere. And so I was actually quite pleased with Katarina in this deck. She would prefer the boards to be like a little bit cheaper than what this one provides, but she did everything that we were needing her to do here, and it was quite strong. At least with the deck not being as successful in terms of win rate that we were looking for, I was very happy in kind of showcasing the real need and the real importance in having the rallies in a deck like this. As we ran into that deep deck, and he's just like, "Oh, here's my little 1/1s and my 2/1s. I'm gonna block your big boys, and you're not gonna deal any damage this turn." Or playing against Twisted Fate Swain, and they just go like House Spider, other card, and you're like, "Oh fuck, I can't actually deal any damage for like 5 turns with how these units play out." And so I think that there's still something here. I think Leona should show up in force. Again, I'm just not super well versed in playing Daybreak. It's not a card we ever really wanted in Expedition. It's not something that I've really given the time of day and constructed currently, and so I'm sure I played a lot of those games quite poorly. But if the format lines up, as it has been, at least in these games that we're playing today, that you could probably just be ultra greedy and cut out the House Spiders and the Mountain Goats and really just kind of focus in on building up a late game, playing Invokes or something. Kind of the world is your oyster in terms of how slow this format seems to be, at least in our limited experience here. And so that's going to do it. That was a good set of games. I had fun. I hope you did too, because that will do it for today. And so I hope everyone enjoyed the video. Hope you maybe learned a thing or two along the way and had a good time watching. So this is Bust, and we thank you for being here.